So let's talk about American foreign policy in light of how the masses react to certain propaganda. Have you ever wondered that there is a very strange, capricious psychosis amongst the masses when it comes to how they react to certain propaganda, how they react to certain information that is given to them? It's very interesting because people can be told something that is very dramatic. They can be told about some sort of an imminent threat. They'll say, this country over here wants to destroy all of you. There's a dictator over there, somewhere in the desert. And it just so happens that this dictator woke up in the morning. He had a cup of black tea, because all Middle Eastern dictators have cups of black tea when they wake up. Seriously, black tea is very popular amongst Middle Eastern people. This stuff is great. You should try it. But, he had his cup of black tea, and there's something in the tea. It makes them crazy. It makes them go mental. It makes them become mentally insane. And so he drunk up the black tea, and now he just is raged at the United States. Something in the water or the tea leaves, it makes them go crazy. It makes them hate America for no reason. No reason at all. Out of nowhere, he hates America. And so he wants to drop a nuke on the United States. He has chemical weapons. And so we have to intervene and send in the badass American soldiers to take that guy out. Send in Jocko Willink and Tim Kennedy to go do the job. And so, of course, you have all of the memes with the badass American soldier with the machine gun, and it's like, look at our brave men going out to kill or to take out this evil enemy of freedom and the Constitution. Don't forget the Constitution, because we all know that Middle Eastern dictators wake up in the morning just with so much rage and anger against the American Constitution. They hate us for our freedoms, They hate us because we're having a good time. They just hate it. They're like the Grinch. They're so angry at American freedom. I'm just so angry that those people have freedom. They hate it. Ugh! Those people hate us because of our freedom. So people believe this sort of stuff. They believe this type of narrative. And it doesn't matter if this was told to them a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It doesn't matter. People act like it was just something that happened. Something that happened out of the blue. And if you tell them, hey, we've heard this sort of line before. We've heard this sort of propaganda 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Oh, no. This time, guys, it's different. It's always different when you're arguing with people who are enslaved to narratives. It's always different. No. This time it's different. It's different this time. This time it's the real deal. This guy is the real threat. So let me give you guys some examples. Okay, so we all know about the example of Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein told the UN, hey, I'm getting rid of all of my chemical weapons. I am not an enemy of the United States. I'm not a threat to the United States. I am willing to cooperate, yada, yada, yada. Then a body of people from Capitol Hill pop up, and they're always friends with a bunch of think tankers or writers who work for think tanks. And those think tankers have some sort of a source with some guy from the Middle East who is, someone who hates the regime. The regime is evil. It's evil. It's the most horrible thing in the world. And it turns out that guy from Iraq is actually a scam artist, and this actually did happen. Look up Ahmed Shalabi. He was the main Middle Eastern source to a lot of the neoconservatives who were pushing for military intervention in Iraq. And he was also a huge scammer who was wanted in the country of Jordan for scamming all the banks of Jordan. No joke, the guy was pure evil. So here's the thing is people ate that stuff up. It didn't matter if Shalabi was a scammer. Didn't matter that there was no evidence of weapons of mass destruction. Didn't matter that those people were lying. Didn't matter. None of that mattered. Didn't matter that these people knew that tremendous amounts of civilian life would be lost in Iraq and that they didn't give a damn about human life. None of that mattered. What mattered was America's interest in the world. That's what mattered. Morality, principle, ethics, the honor for human life, the sacredness of life, all that was thrown out the window because of two words: American interests. And when they say American interests, they don't give a damn about you. They don't give a damn about the guy who's picking up your garbage every morning. They don't give a damn about the waiter, the guy who's installing tile, or the guy who's installing hardwood floor or stucco. They're talking about themselves. They're talking about the corporate interests that are backing up their political apparatus. So this sort of thing actually happened in Libya in the late 1960s, 70s, and also in the early 80s. Gaddafi did certain measures to please America, to make America think, or to get America to think that he wasn't a threat. And by get, I don't mean deceive. I mean, Gaddafi actually tried to tell the Americans, hey, I'm not a threat. I'm not a global threat. Libya under King Idris signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1968, and Gaddafi ratified it in 1975 and concluded a safeguards agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA, in 1980. So Gaddafi made an agreement with the IAEA that he was going to clean out his chemical weapons. He was not going to be a threat to the US. Now, the IAEA, that rings a bell because Iran did a similar action. Iran made a deal with the IAEA saying, you guys can inspect our nuclear plants, our nuclear facilities, and we are not going to make nuclear weapons as long as you allow us, you meaning America, allow us to have free economic ties with other countries, basically to make money with Western countries like Germany. Iran simply said, we won't make a nuke as long as you allow us into the free international market, capitalism. And I like how all of these neoconservatives are so fanatical about capitalism, unless it's Iran that wants to do capitalism. If Iran wants to do capitalism, then it's Vladimir Lenin on the peasant level type of control over that country. You can't make money with these countries. No, you can't make deals with these countries. You want loans from the international bank, the international monetary system? No, you can't do that. And so it was a similar situation with both Saddam and Gaddafi. Saddam said, hey, I'm getting rid of the chemical weapons. I'm not a threat to the US. In fact, Saddam was doing all the dirty work for the US by killing terrorists. Gaddafi also was fighting against Islamism in his country. Try reading the writings of Gaddafi. Seriously, try reading the writings of Gaddafi. I recently finished reading a compilation of his works. Gaddafi really hated Islamists. Like, he hated them. Now, he quotes the Quran a lot, not a lot, but he quotes the Quran and various times in his writings. But he is bashing the Islamists constantly, mocking them, making fun of them, talking about how stupid and crazy they are, how much they are enemies to the progress of Libya. And he actually wanted Libya to become a technologically modern country. That was the threat. The threat of Gaddafi wasn't that he was this, global enemy, or that he was this enemy to the United States. The real threat of Gaddafi, in American eyes, in the eyes of American interest, was that he was actually working to make Libya into a technologically advanced country. America didn't want that because Libya was not really an ally to the US, and if a country isn't under our hegemony, we don't like it when those countries succeed. I want to show you guys something from this book that I just started reading today. It is called Exit the Colonel by Ethan Coren. And it is a history of the Libyan revolution and also of the U.S. intervention policy in that country that took place in 2011. And my cat is right here distracting me. The book is not pro-Gaddafi. It's not one of these books written by some guy from Zero Hedge or, I don't know, some website that's sympathetic to Russia. It's written by a guy who's very critical of Gaddafi, but at the same time, he tries to give a balanced view. At least that's the impression I'm getting from the first 20 pages that I have read. I will give you guys the progress of this book as I continue reading it. As you guys know, people who have been watching my videos, most of my videos are commentary of what I am currently reading. And so, in the introduction of the book, Mr. Coren talks about how Gaddafi tried to gain the favor of the Western world by signing a treaty with the Americans, and how the Americans pretty much threw the treaty out the window. So it says here, in 2003, Gaddafi signed what many inside and outside his circle had thought an impossible deal with the United States, as in the US would never agree. So Gaddafi signed a deal that people didn't expect the Americans to agree with. They didn't expect the Americans to sign on to this. Abandoning his weapons of mass destruction, as they were, and agreeing to compensate the families of the victims of the 1988 Lockerbie bombing and to share intelligence in service to the West's war on terror. So Gaddafi said, hey, I'll give money to the families of the victims of the Lockerbie bombing. I will abandon my weapons of mass destruction, and I will help the U.S. in fighting Islamist terrorism. In return, UN and U.S. sanctions on Libya were lifted, allowing Gaddafi to sell his oil more freely, attract international investment into his ailing oil infrastructure, and assume an altogether more public persona. We've heard this story before. Iran said, hey, we won't make a nuke. Just let us sell our stuff to other countries so we can make money and we'll be happy. We won't have any problems. And America's like, yeah, sure. And then in comes Trump with all that money from Sheldon Adelson and Paul Singer and the rest of them. Iran deal supporting terrorism, even though the whole point of the Iran deal was to prevent Iran from making a nuclear weapon. Oh, no, the Iranians are liars. They're all liars. Just like Gaddafi. Hey, Gaddafi wrote a deal. He made a deal with you guys. He just wants to make money. He tried to make his image better for the West. Oh, no, that doesn't matter. That guy with his African outfit, he's got his, like, Coming to America, King of Zamunda hat, that guy. Yeah, he's bad news. He's real evil, that guy. He is the embodiment, the incarnation of pure evil, guys. Just so happens that he hates America for no reason at all. So it says, for a time, Gaddafi, like the Sultan in Nahum's story, and this is a poem that he quotes in the beginning of the book. So Gaddafi believed this deal had saved him from his mounting problems. Yet it was precisely at this critical juncture that Gaddafi lost control of his own destiny. The West lost a few degrees of its moral compass in the Middle East, and the United States and key European countries, the UK and France in particular, unwittingly set the stage for their own intervention in Libya in 2011. And I wonder why the French were so interested in Libya. What are the French doing right now? They are taking in that natural gas. Italy is doing the same exact thing. Turkey just made a deal with the Government of National Accord, which is the UN-recognized government in Libya, which is against the government of Khalifa Haftar. Turkey just made a deal with this government that allows Turkey to take in natural gas from Libyan territory. So Gaddafi at first, hey, he was good enough to make a deal with, right? He wasn't so bad. I mean, he was good enough to make a deal with. The Americans made this deal. Before, he had made an agreement with the IAEA. Before that, he said, hey, I'm scrapping up my chemical weapons. And none of that mattered. None of that mattered. Because once you have oil and natural gas in your country, and Libya is one of the biggest possessors of these resources, you are going to be in the crosshairs of a lot of countries. Countries more wealthy than you. But here's the whole point. Here's the whole point. Besides the fact that what's happening in Libya is what has been happening in Africa for quite a long time, powerful first world countries taking over an African country to take its resources. We've seen this before. Besides that, the point is this. We've seen this story before. We saw it with Saddam. We saw it with Libya. And literally the same thing has been going on with Iran. Sanctions, even though Iran made an agreement with the Americans about not making a nuclear weapon, none of that mattered. Now the US, listening to a couple of billionaires like Sheldon Adelson and Paul Singer, has sanctions on Iran, and the Iranian economy is free-falling, and as a result, hardliners, be they Islamist hardliners or nationalist hardliners, have become very, very popular because, well, America is crippling their country. So of course, who are they going to go? It's so simple. You can't, for some reason, this doesn't register in people's brains. It's like if you put sanctions on these people and destroy their economy and create tremendous amounts of unemployment and economic and financial woe and anguish, do you think they're going to like America? Do you think they're going to vote for politicians who want to have cooperation with America and other Western countries? But people think that that's a good idea. They think this is a great strategy to do. And it's like, wait a second, guys, we've seen this before. And then when those countries express hatred for the United States, they hate us for our freedoms. It's like they're just, ugh, I hate those Americans. They're just so free. I hate it. I hate freedom. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's like, hey, they were willing to make a deal with you. They made the deal. The IAEA said, hey, they are listening to the rules. They are complying with the requirements and the demands of the IAEA. No, none of that mattered. According to the Ben Shapiro crowd, the Iranians were liars. According to Dennis Prager, they were all liars. Meanwhile, these very conservatives love nationalism. They love the nationalist phenomena that's coming up in Europe. They think that's just great. Brexit, allowing Germany to become even more powerful in Europe, that's wonderful, even though the United States had a whole war with Germany just 75 or so years ago. The nationalist Americans, many of whom are Zionists, they think that's great. Well, but the thing is that people believe the same propaganda over and over again. It's like a form of psychosis. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing a psychosis. It's very scary how people can just flip. It's like, hey, we had Mexican immigration in the 1800s. Nothing happened. It wasn't a problem. Oh no, this time it's different. Those Mexicans and those Guatemalans, they are going to destroy America. And they are all a bunch of leeches and bloodsuckers. But oh yeah, the Democrats are the real Nazis, while we call migrants bloodsuckers and leeches, even though they're coming here to do all the work that most people don't want to do. And I know Americans would do it if they were paid more. Well, do you want to buy bananas for $10, $12? Do you want to buy tomatoes for 89 cents a pound? Hell yes. Do you want to buy tomatoes for $5 a pound? Hire an American and be a good patriot. Anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this message. You guys just heard some theology. God bless.